Rejection feels like a door closing, but sometimes it is not a door. Sometimes it is a sign that you are about to enter the wrong room. That is hard to believe when it happens, when the message says no, when the interview ends and they never call back, when the person you wanted chooses someone else, when the opportunity disappears, when the thing you prayed for, worked for, waited for, and imagined so clearly suddenly slips out of your hands. In that moment, rejection does not feel like redirection. It feels like humiliation. It feels personal. It feels like life looked at everything you had to offer and said, not enough. And that is why rejection is so dangerous. Not because of the no itself, but because of the story your mind starts telling after the no. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I was stupid for trying. Maybe people like me do not get chosen. Maybe this always happens. Maybe I should stop wanting so much. And if you are not careful, one rejection becomes a label, then a wound, then a personality, then a cage. But here is the truth. Most people only understand years later. Some of the best things in your life will begin as the worst rejections you ever received. Not because rejection feels good, it does not. Not because every rejection is secretly a blessing. Some are just painful, but because rejection can remove you from the path your ego wanted and push you toward the path your life actually needed. You may not see it immediately. In fact, most redirection looks like failure at first. It looks like being ignored. It looks like starting over. It looks like losing the person. It looks like watching someone else get the opportunity. It looks like sitting alone with a dream that no longer knows where to go. But give life enough time, and some of those closed doors start to look different. You begin to realize the job that rejected you would have trapped you. The person who left you was not capable of loving you properly. The group that excluded you forced you to build your own voice. The failure that embarrassed you made you stronger than easy success ever could have. And the delay that broke your heart gave you skills, patience, and wisdom you did not even know you needed. That is the proof. Not that rejection is painless, but that rejection is not always punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is correction. Sometimes it is life interrupting the version of you that was about to settle. Think about how many times you wanted something so badly, only to look back later and feel grateful it did not happen. At the time, you begged for it. You thought losing it would ruin you. You thought that one person, one job, one chance, one yes, one approval, one open door was the whole future. Then time passed, and slowly, the truth came out. The situation was smaller than you imagined. The person was not who you thought they were. The opportunity came with a cost you could not yet see. The dream was built more on proving yourself than becoming yourself, and the rejection that once felt cruel started looking like mercy. This is where things get interesting. Rejection does not always redirect you to something easier. Sometimes it redirects you to something that demands more of you. More honesty, more discipline, more patience, more courage, more self-respect. That is why people often miss the redirection. They expect rejection to lead immediately to something better. But often, rejection first leads to a harder version of growth. It sends you back to the beginning, back to the mirror, back to the work, back to the uncomfortable question, who am I when I am not chosen? That question matters, because if your identity depends on being accepted, you will spend your whole life afraid of rejection. You will shrink yourself to fit into rooms that do not deserve you. You will chase people who keep making you feel small. You will confuse approval with love. You will confuse being wanted with being valued. You will keep knocking on doors that were never meant to open, while ignoring the road forming behind you. Rejection hurts because it takes away the outcome you wanted, but it also gives you something if you are brave enough to receive it. Information. It shows you where you are attached. It shows you what you were depending on. It shows you whether you believed in your own worth or only believed in it when someone else confirmed it. That kind of truth is uncomfortable, but it can save your life. Because rejection has a way of stripping away fantasy. When someone says no, you learn what was real. You learn whether the dream was strong enough to survive disappointment. You learn whether your desire was rooted in purpose or ego. You learn who supports you when you are not winning. You learn how you speak to yourself when the world does not clap. And maybe most importantly, you learn that a no does not kill you. It only feels like it will. That is a powerful discovery. The first rejection may break your confidence. The second may shake your identity. The third may make you question everything. But if you keep returning, something changes. You stop treating rejection like a final verdict. You start treating it like a direction change. Not a pleasant one, not one you asked for, but a direction change. And once rejection loses the power to destroy your self-worth, you become dangerous in the best way. You can apply again. You can love again. You can create again. You can speak again. You can walk away from people who do not choose you without begging them to explain your value back to you. That is freedom, not never being rejected and still remaining yours. There are people who never become who they are supposed to be because they were accepted too early. Think about that. Sometimes early acceptance can be a trap. If the first door opens, you may never question whether it was the right one. If the first person chooses you, you may ignore whether they are good for you. If the first plan works, you may never build the deeper strength that failure creates. Easy yeses can make people comfortable in small lives. A painful no can force them to grow beyond what they were originally asking for. That is why rejection can be violent grace. It hurts, but it moves you. It pushes you out of places where you might have stayed too long. It removes people you might have kept begging for. It exposes dreams that were too small for the person you are becoming. And sometimes it makes you build the thing you were waiting for someone else to give you. The artist rejected by the industry starts sharing work independently. The employee rejected by one company builds skills and later finds a better role. The person abandoned in love finally learns self-respect. The friend excluded from the group finds people who do not make belonging feel like a test. The dream that failed becomes the reason someone discovers a better one. This is not fantasy. This is how life often works, but you can only see it if you survive the first emotion. Because the first emotion lies. The first emotion says, "This is the end." The first emotion says, "They were right about you." The first emotion says, "Do not try again." The first emotion says, "Hide." The first emotion says, "Make yourself smaller so this never hurts again." Do not make permanent decisions from the first emotion. The first emotion is pain speaking, not wisdom. Let the pain speak, but do not let it lead. Sit with it, feel it, admit that it hurt, but do not build your future from the version of you that is bleeding. Wait until the storm passes, enough for your mind to ask better questions. What did this rejection reveal? What was I trying to force? What did I ignore because I wanted the outcome so badly? What can I improve? What was never in my control? What is still possible? What part of me needs to grow before the next door opens? That is how rejection becomes redirection. Not automatically, not magically, through reflection, through discipline, through refusing to let pain become your identity. Because a no by itself does not redirect you. Your response does. Some people get rejected and become bitter. Some become wiser. Some become cruel. Some become focused. Some stop trying. Some finally begin for real. The rejection is the event. The redirection is the choice after the event. That is where your power lives. You cannot control who chooses you. You cannot control which company hires you. You cannot control which opportunity arrives when you want it. You cannot control how people judge your work. You cannot control whether someone recognizes your value at the exact moment you wish they would. But you can control what you do after the no. You can study, you can improve, you can leave with dignity, you can stop chasing what keeps rejecting your soul. You can redirect your effort. You can protect your heart without closing it. You can become better without becoming bitter. That is the real proof. Every person with strength has had to survive being unseen. Every person with depth has had to survive being misunderstood. Every person with self-respect has had to walk away from something they once begged to keep. Every person with a real story has stood in front of a closed door and had to decide whether that door was the end or the beginning of a different road. Rejection is not proof that you are worthless. Sometimes it is proof that you are being asked to stop outsourcing your worth. You wanted them to choose you so you could finally feel chosen. You wanted the opportunity so you could finally feel legitimate. You wanted the applause so you could finally feel talented. You wanted the relationship so you could finally feel lovable. But maybe the no is asking you to build something stronger, a worth that does not disappear when someone fails to see it, a confidence that does not collapse when one door stays closed, a love for yourself that does not depend on being someone else's first choice. That kind of strength is not built by constant acceptance. It is built in the silence after rejection, when you decide not to abandon yourself. And that is the hardest part, because rejection often makes people reject themselves. Someone does not want you, so you stop wanting yourself. Someone does not see your talent, so you stop creating. Someone does not invite you, so you start believing you do not belong anywhere. Someone does not reply, so you start questioning your entire value. That is how the rejection multiplies. They reject you once, then you reject yourself every day after. Do not do that. Do not continue the harm on their behalf. Their no is enough. Do not add your own. You can be disappointed without becoming self-destructive. You can feel unwanted without deciding you are unworthy. You can lose a chance without losing the ability to try again. You can be heartbroken without handing your entire future to the person who left. This is the quiet discipline of redirection. It is not loud. It is not glamorous. It is not always inspiring at first. Sometimes it is simply saying, "I did not get what I wanted, but I will not turn against myself." That sentence can save you, because after rejection, your relationship with yourself is the first thing that needs protection. You need to speak to yourself like someone you are responsible for saving, not with fake positivity, with steadiness. Yes, this hurts. Yes, this is disappointing. Yes, I wanted it badly. But no, this does not define me. No, I will not beg. No, I will not become bitter. No, I will not let one closed door convince me there are no doors left. This is how you begin to move again, and moving matters, because rejection can freeze people. They start waiting for certainty before they try again, waiting until they feel confident, waiting until they feel healed, waiting until the fear is gone. But confidence often comes after movement, not before it. You do not wait until you feel unshakable to take the next step. You take the next step, and the mind slowly learns that you can survive. You send the application, you make the art, you go to the gym, you start the conversation, you build the skill, you meet new people, you stop checking the old message thread, you stop refreshing the place that hurt you, you stop begging the closed door to become your destiny. Small actions turn redirection from an idea into a road. Without action, rejection is redirection, is just a quote. With action, it becomes proof. because proof does not appear while you are sitting still. Proof appears when you look back months later and realize the rejection forced you to move. You would not have changed if they had stayed. You would not have built the skill if they had accepted you. You would not have found the better path if the first one had worked. You would not have discovered your own strength if life had kept handing you easy yeses. That is why time is such an important part of rejection. In the moment, rejection feels like subtraction. Something was taken, a person, a chance, a plan, a future. But with time, some rejections become addition. They add clarity, they add maturity, they add discipline, they add self-respect, they add direction. They add a version of you that would never have existed if life gave you exactly what you asked for. That does not mean every rejection will make sense. Some things remain painful, some losses do not become beautiful. Some no's are simply unfair, and anyone who tells you to instantly be grateful for rejection has probably forgotten what real heartbreak feels like. You do not have to romanticize pain. You do not have to pretend rejection was easy. You do not have to call every wound a blessing. But you can still refuse to let the wound decide the rest of your life. That is the balance. Feel the rejection honestly. Then use it wisely. Do not deny the pain. Do not worship it either. Let it become a turning point, not a permanent address. And maybe the proof you want will not come today. Maybe today all you have is the no mot, the empty inbox, the quiet phone, the closed door, the plan that did not happen, the person who did not stay, the opportunity that went to someone else. That is okay. You do not need to understand the whole road today. You only need to not stop on it. Take the next step, not because you are sure it will lead somewhere perfect, because standing still inside rejection gives it too much power. And one day, when enough distance has passed, you may look back at the thing you thought you lost and realize something strange. You were not being buried. You were being moved. Moved away from what was too small. Moved away from people who could not meet you. Moved away from a future built on approval. Moved toward a stronger self. Moved toward better questions. Moved toward work that mattered more. Moved toward a life you could not see because your hands were full of something you were not meant to carry. That is redirection. It does not always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives disguised as failure. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Sometimes it begins with rejection so painful you think nothing good can come from it. But then you keep living, you keep learning, you keep moving, and slowly the proof appears. Not as a speech, not as a sign in the sky, but as your own life becoming bigger than the door that closed. That is when you understand. The rejection was real, the pain was real, the loss was real, but so was the road after it. And the road after it may be the place where you finally meet the version of yourself that acceptance would never have forced you to become. So if you have been rejected, do not rush to call it the end. Let it hurt, let it teach, let it redirect. And most of all, do not reject yourself because someone else failed to choose you. Their no may close one door, but your next choice decides whether your life opens again. So what do you think was your worst? Rejection actually the thing that pushed you toward the life you were supposed to build?